to LOA Today. I'm Walt T. Welcome to LOA Today. I'm Walt Thiessen.
With me today is life coach and LOA teacher Joel Elston.
This is your daily dose of happy. We are so happy you decided to join us today. Joel, I'll give you a little heads up that on Mondays I do two shows. This is the second one that I do every Monday. And the earlier show today started off with all kinds of technical issues that iron themselves out. Hopefully, the technical issues that I just encountered trying to start the program are ironing themselves out right now. But just in case, I'm giving you a little heads up. So if I flicker and go away from it, I'll be right back. It's just technical issues for Mondays, all it is.
One of the things, Walt, that I really appreciate is there's a movie, several movies that address this. But when astronauts go to the dark side of the moon, the other side, they lose contact because there's no direct.
Oh, right.
So you just went to the dark side of the moon. That's all I just. You're there for a while. Sure enough, you're coming back, and and unless there's aliens or something, we're good.
Well, it's appropriate too, because I have a new background that has brighter space.
Yeah.
So that's it turns out that the dark side of the moon is actually pretty bright. It's pretty cool.
It is. Yeah, it's really not dark, but we can get into that. But we have another topic, so
we do. Well, in a sense, it's actually kind of related because it's about what happens when we focus all of our attention on feeling happy and end up on the dark side.
Absolutely.
Which is confusing. I mean, because, well, first of all, it happens a lot, but it's counterintuitive. Like, how could you possibly be on the dark side when you're focusing on being happy? And yet it's amazing how often it happens. Right.
The premise, what I like, this was off my Facebook page. I posted this probably 3 or 4 days ago, likely. The idea that when you're constantly seeking happiness, or you're constantly seeking wealth, or you're constantly seeking anything, it becomes counterintuitive because you become desperate for it. So you literally, we use this with the law of attraction all the time. You and I, years ago, somewhere along the way, this gentleman, he was messaging us saying, I started listening to you guys and doing the law of attraction, really for my finances. But it hadn't really worked for my finances, but it's worked great for my relationships. It's worked great for my job. It worked, and we really went straight to the point, because you're not focusing on the other things. You're just putting them out there, and they can't fulfill. But when you get desperate, or you're craving it so bad, the energy, the emotion, or whatever that is really the emotion of lack. So when you're constantly seeking happiness, and you become obsessed with it, then it's really the lack of happiness that you're putting out to the universe, and that's what you're getting back. And you see that so much. People become desperately like, I want this so bad, is really the absolute opposite emotion of what you need to be delivering.
Oh yeah. Well, I don't just see it. I've experienced it. I mean, that's one of the things. Yes, we did. I do remember the gentleman you're talking about.
Yeah.
But a lot of the shows that we talked about, especially in those early years, were about me and about how I was doing exactly that thing. And very well, I might add. I was very highly skilled at it. I like to say, there's value in having a skill. That was a big skill of mine.
It was. You're really the best at it I've ever seen, especially back in the day. So I wanted to, just give you a compliment for that.
Thank you. I appreciate that.
I also have, this is so random, but, we all have skills, and that is, obviously that's one of your gifts, right? Doing that. So I have a skill, and I'm always grateful for everything. I am, and I promise you this, I am the best whack-a-mole player on the planet.
Okay.
Yeah, I don't lose at all. I dominate whack-a-mole.
Okay.
Okay. Now, if they ever start a professional whack-a-mole tournament, I'm your man. but I haven't found a way to make that lucrative. It doesn't translate to anything else. But
Yeah.
just randomly saying I'm a whack-a-mole champion. I have beat every kid, every adult, everybody who's ever challenged me. I've never lost a whack-a-mole event.
I follow what I follow your drift there, because
Yeah.
it's the same thing with me. I haven't found a way to actually turn this skill of mine into money.
Yeah. I mean, some people are, last night I watched the Super Bowl. That's a game that football plays at the end of your wall.
I actually do know what the Super Bowl. I even know what the score was. So
Oh wow, yeah. So, but you're looking at all these highly skilled athletes with these great skill sets and speed and athletic ability, and I was given whack-a-mole.
Mm-hmm.
That was it. I mean, it's like, is it fair? Probably not, but nonetheless, you have to accept what it is. I have other skills too, but my whack-a-mole skills are amazing.
Well, okay, and put that on the resume. So I mean, that would be valuable to somebody at some point, sometime. So.
If we get invaded by moles,
there you go.
I mean, I might be the guy they call to go knock those moles out, maybe. So,
a new business model going on there.
Yeah. I apologize for my digression there, but the idea of when you want it, you can. The law of attraction is a balance, and the law of attraction, as we say every week, has no emotion. It doesn't understand good or bad. Mm-hmm. It simply responds to your emotion. And so, anything you perceive you're lacking, that's what you're putting out there. So if you're putting out a feeling of lack, you're going to receive more lack in that arena, that area. It's just what's going to happen. And stuff that you're learning how to navigate that, how to put that into your field, how to live like you're living that without, if you're really putting in the energy to feel like you're living a certain way, if you're really happy, you don't have to force happiness. You don't have to chase happiness. It's just, it's counterintuitive.
It does raise the interesting question, though. It's interesting when you talk about intellectually. It's downright terrifying when you're living it. And that question is, why is it that being so dissatisfied, or believing that you can't get there, or buying into the lack, why is that the default setting? That's the part that gets confusing. And why is it so hard to turn that setting off?
Well, I really believe like one of the easiest things you can become in life is homeless. It doesn't require any effort. You just don't do anything, and homelessness happens, right? I mean, it's just, okay, well, let's just go be homeless. One of the hardest things to become is like an astronaut or a neurosurgeon. That takes just unbelievable amount of time and skill. So there's a perception of anything that we want, that usually things that we value require some level of effort, energy, or skill or training, right? So our lack default, that default lack thinking comes from like, it's too hard for me to go get that, or it's just there's an underlying cause. I also think it is sort of evolutionary in a sense too, because that negative homeostasis, we don't want to change, we don't want to move. It's just very protective. That goes way back to, it's sort of ingrained in us, I really believe. But that feeling of lack, I think depression, or that's a strong word, but sadness, I think for many people has become really a default setting. Anxiety for many people is a default setting. And it's really sad, because what a horrible way to live your life. But I grew up in a home full of a lot of mental illness and addiction and all kind of, and what a bizarre thing to observe as a child. So that all I saw was all that. I had to go learn all this other stuff. When it's normal to see your grandfather come home and beat your grandmother's ass, in the middle of the kitchen, you're like, oh, okay, well, this is what, this is Friday night. That's what people do. And it's just, and to actually realize, no, this isn't normal. This isn't acceptable. But yet that default setting for me was, wow, I just hope my grandfather doesn't come home. I mean, I was just, much less worried about being happy. Screw happy. I just need him not to come home and kill us. So that you get into a lot of that stuff's programmed in a lot of ways.
And the programming, the programming happens through repetition.
Yes, everything's repetition. Yeah. Yes. Absolutely. Well, people that have relationship problems, they keep having the same relationship problem. The same scenarios keep playing out. Why does it keep playing out? Well, you're almost dreading or fearing that one thing. And by the way, I am not a relationship coach. Let's just put that out there. Okay. Because
Okay.
Okay, so I'm
Mark
not
down.
any. Yeah, please don't send me an email. Can you do couples counseling? I
No
cannot
problem. No
on any
problem.
level. Yes, I lack skills in that area personally as well. So, but this idea that we have this idea that the same things just keep happening, and that lesson keeps repeating until we do something different. But we're stuck in habitual, repetitive behavior. That like you've told me before, the cycle of thinking is very repetitive for you, for me too. But breaking away from that, it literally is that it's reprogramming the back part, the subconscious part of the brain that we don't have direct access to. That's why repetitive nature is required over and over and over for that subconscious brain to say, "Oh, wait, this is the reality now."
Yeah, yeah, and I think also it's kind of not surprising because it happens all the time. It's a striking thing that
Yes.
it really is a repetition because when we repeat something over and over again, it starts that's where belief comes from. That, by the way, that's something that Abraham Hicks taught that I really one of the first things I picked up from them that I said, wow, that makes total sense. A belief is a thought you think over and over and over again. And boy, that really is the truth because wow, you can convince yourself of almost anything just by repeating it over and over again. So be very
Yes.
selective
Yes.
about what it is that you decide you're going to repeat over and over again because you're going to get it. And it's going to be part of your life. It's going to be part of your thought process.
Completely, and that's what I've just observed for me over the years of the growing up, how I grew up, developing a gambling addiction. A lack of money for me was a very big thing. It was
Mm,
just that programming, always operating from a lack of money,
right.
and that was even when I got in recovery from my addiction, I was always barely squeaking by, or I was never able to get ahead until it took me a long time to flip that switch, and money isn't an issue anymore for me. It's not. But I mean, I spent a lot of time. I spent my majority of time changing that programming to get to a place where I can attract the abundance that I have today.
And one way or another, what that means is when you say you changed that programming, you basically had to rewrite it. You had to write it
Completely.
into something else entirely, one that was actually consistent with and congruent with having money
Yes.
instead of not having money.
Yeah, and that was really hard to do with no. I was going from total a rewrite. It isn't like something that I had an experience with before. I had to rewrite that because my mom had a bad relationship with money. She was always operating from a lack. Now my dad who adopted me, uh, did real well with money. My mom never. She never really got on board with that. They were always at odds with money because he was very much an entrepreneur. Let's do this thing. She was very much, hold on, we got to save every penny. We can't do these things. And he's like, yeah, we're doing it. And that created a lot of stuff. Uh,
Right.
but I got that reinforced once I got my gambling addiction and developed that. And I was just constantly losing money, chunks of money, and I was
Mhm.
always desperate for money. And no matter how, and that was sort of the drive of the gambling. I was going to go win a lot of money. That was the program. I was going to win a couple $1 million and whatever that number is going to be. And I did it the opposite way. Went and lost over $1 million of money that I stole from my dad's company. So it didn't work out well at all.
Yeah.
Yeah, but I reversed that, and uh, I just money is not it's not in my top 50 things. I don't think about it at all. I like to look at my stock. I look at stuff, but it doesn't occupy my
Do you
brain at
remember
all.
what the process was, though? I mean, as you were making that shift, because you had to rewrite it, you had to rewrite that
Yes,
old programming into
yes.
more positive programming. Do you recall how you did that?
Well, yeah. When I discovered The Secret, the I often recommend The Secret as an entry level introduction to the law of attraction. Uh, I started realizing that I was expecting poverty. I was expecting a lack of money. I was expecting all that. Uh, and so I had to start rethinking that. Now, it doesn't do any good to say I'm rich when I have, no credit and no money in the bank. And,
Right.
you can't say that because you
Well, you
got to
can say it,
believe
you
what
just
you're
won't
saying.
believe it.
Exactly, exactly. The key is believing the thing, not saying it. That's the problem, or that's not a problem. It's just how it operates. And so I had to start looking at the concept of what would it be like if I had $100,000, or what would it, I started just taking time to imagine, calm down, what would I do? And I would actually, create these mind movies in my head. I would sit there and envision my paycheck. Back then I was hoping to make $50,000 a year. So I did the math on what $50,000 a year would look like, and I started, doing that, and I would give myself a raise, and I would envision it. Just once you have to repetitively do that. There's a concept. There's the mental bank is a concept that's talked about in a couple of different realms, where you write yourself a check, or buy things mentally over and over again, or you keep a ledger. So I did a lot of those practices, and then all of a sudden it went from me barely having enough money to pay my rent and do things. So I'm noticing, well, I got a little bit of money left over. I got this, and then the more I did that, then I could use that energy to, like, I remember the first time I saved $1,000. I was so excited. I would look at that $1,000 and I'd go, that's pretty good. I mean, my bills are, when I say caught up, I still had bills, but everything was current, and I had $1,000. And then, and then when I got that up to $5,000, then, and then the increments change, and then you wake up one day and get 100,000 or whatever that number is going to be. And it's like, wow. And it's amazing. Then once you start that process, the money just comes. And then as I said, I do not spend any energy on money. In fact, last year I didn't do half the stuff I'm supposed to do to sort of make my taxes right. My accountant's on me about all that, and I'm supposed to do all these things. I didn't do any of it. So we're running around crazy right now trying to, before taxes are due, to get that mitigated. But again, I still don't care. I mean, whatever it is, we're fine. It doesn't matter. There was a time that would scare the hell out of me, but it doesn't anymore.
You're right. Yeah, and I know that feeling of being scared, having the hell scared out of you over that kind of thing, because it's terrifying when you get in that.
Yeah.
Something else that I wanted to bring up too, to get your commentary on, largely because this is part of what I went through as I was trying to overcome my own resistances where finances were concerned. I found that unwittingly I would confuse two concepts that seem very similar on the surface, but they're actually not similar at all. On the one hand, there's, like you were describing, focusing on abundance in various different ways and feeling the abundance and so forth. Now, on the other hand, there's asking for the thing that you want. And those are the two things I would confuse, thinking that if I'm asking for the thing that I want over and over again, it's the same thing as focusing on the abundance of it. But it isn't necessarily.
Often the asking for the thing you want is really transmitting the lack of the thing you want. Often. Yeah. And it's good to put out there. Like I was explaining to a young man that is introducing to these concepts. I think he's 14 or 15 at the time. And as I mentioned a few times, young people are really good at the law of attraction. And he said, so you're saying I can have anything I want? I said, well, no. I'm saying that you can get the essence of anything you want. If the idea, if you want a house that I'm living in and I don't want to sell it to you, you can't have my house. No matter how much you want to manifest my house, you can't have it. But if you get the essence of it, you got to focus on the essence of what you're asking. And that's sort of the key. The idea that I want to feel the essence of, if I had that house, how would that feel? Or if I had a similar house, how would that feel? Or have a car, or whatever your thing is, you got to bring the feeling of what it would have, not the thing itself.
So getting back to the topic of how it is that we end up focusing so much of our energy in such a fearful way on, I got to be happy, or I want to have abundance, or I want to be wealthy, or something like that, and ending up unhappy in the process. When we look at that topic, one of the key elements we're saying right here is we're focusing on the lack of it. And that focus of lack can actually play out a number of different ways, all of which work against what we're trying to do.
It works out in different ways, but it's always bad. So lack attracts lack. And always remember that. I have a shirt that says lack attracts lack.
Do you really? I didn't know that.
Yeah. I have that made just for lack attracts lack. And so this idea that learning to, first of all, identifying happiness. At this exact moment, recording this is 7:22 on a Monday evening in February. And at this exact moment, everything's fine. Everything's great. I'm happy at this moment. So if you can live within a moment of happiness, if you can just start feeling that, not nothing's there's get rid of everything else. At this moment, things are great. Try to feel happy. And I love doing the show with you, so I'm always happy when we're talking. So
Exactly.
we have an hour of happiness. So when you learn to condition your brain to accept happiness or even identify, even if it's for a microsecond, we can grow that incrementally. And then you learn what true happiness is. There's nothing in the world that will bring you happiness from the outside. It has to come up from the inside. The belief that the next car is going to make you happy. Now I like nice cars. I have some really nice cars. I trade every couple of years. I'm gonna get another one too. So, but that's not going to bring me happiness at all. Now, the fact that I'm already happy and I can enjoy the brand new Lexus SUV that's coming out in the next month, that's going to be exciting. But it's not because of but I just love cars. But it's not the fact that I have it. That would make me miserable if I didn't have happiness already. So the belief that happiness is located over there is part of the problem. Happiness is always internal, and you're in charge of that on any given day. Do that, and then over there becomes very reachable, but you got to start here.
Isn't that an odd thing? It is true. I think all of us, pretty much from the first day that we're aware that we're alive on this planet, in this life, we think about things that we want as being out there. I mean, that's just the way we're wired.
Right.
Now, I don't know if that's because of the way society teaches us or what. Maybe we do come into this world knowing differently, as I've been told by some. I'm not really sure. All I know is from my earliest memory, I kept thinking, well, it's out there and that's where it's got to come from. So in that sense, it's very counterintuitive that it has to come inside first.
And often right in front of you is happiness. Often there's an old cartoon from The Far Side, if you remember that series,
Oh,
The
I
Far
love
Side.
The Far
Yeah.
Side.
And it's a view of above a lake, and it shows two fishermen getting in their boats and going to the opposite side of the lake to fish. And they both are going to the place. It's like somehow over there is going to be better than we're at. They're going to where the other one was.
Right.
And we sort of live like that way. When I learned once I understood that I got to become happy with where I'm at and what I have. And there's a lot of ways there's a lot of tools to do this. If I look at where I was on any given day, my worst day today, there's not really such a thing, but my worst day today is is like, oh my God, can you imagine that worst day? I mean, it back in the day, I'd be celebrating my worst day today. It's like, can you imagine this life? I had an argument with Lexus that they weren't going to fix my wheel. They ended up fixing it. And I'm like, I laughed in the middle of this because why am I even caring about this? It's just, it was such a silly thing that I was getting frustrated with. And I realized, yeah, I'm worried about my scratch on my wheel on my car. I just don't really care. I don't care at all. And they ended up capitulating and fixing it. It was all good, but but yet we can get stuck on these little things that make us believe we're unhappy, and then that becomes back to that default setting. You're reminding yourself of what is right in your life. Gratitude is a great way, a gateway to happiness. When you're grateful for the people in your life, all you have. I have incredible people in my life. I remind myself of that. I've come, as I've always said, I'm not claiming to be the most successful person on the planet, but few people have traveled the distance I've traveled to get where I'm at. And I've had a massive comeback, and I love that. And it's just, I cherish life. I've had a couple experiences recently where it's really reinforced how much I cherish life. I just love what I have going on. So every day today, I had a no-show client today, and I'd be like, oh, I said, hey, this is an opportunity to make a couple of calls. I set 2 more appointments. So it's just this idea that no matter what happens, find the happiness in right now, and then you can grow that. That's sort of the thing. It's not over there. It's always here.
That and I love how you were emphasizing it's not a big deal.
Yeah.
Because that talk about how we build beliefs. That's how things become a big deal. We make them into a big deal through the way we think about them and the way we talk about them and the way we interact with others about them. And we make it an ongoing thing that builds bigger and bigger and bigger and bigger until the momentum of it is so large that it's dominating our lives.
Absolutely. And that's amazing to me that we can live in a place
It
now.
is.
Yeah, that it what really matters. What are we getting upset about? And again, it's all so much minutia and so much stuff that takes place when you really evaluate, you know, the ultimate start. This sounds so basic, but when you wake up in the morning, when you realize, okay, I have the at least the gift of another start of a day. And then you think, wow, look at what's going on in my life. It's just if you could walk out the door with the gratitude and the happiness of, man, I'm enjoying being here. I'd love to participate in life now. And my days aren't perfect every day. I'm a human being. Sometimes be in traffic. We have a little problem in traffic, and my attitude doesn't, you know adjust a little bit at time when somebody cuts me off or goes 20 miles an hour after pulling out in front of me. But we're still a work in progress. I'm not necessarily happy at that moment, but I get happy pretty quick after that.
Yeah, well, it's not something that you just learn and you're done.
Yeah. I'm ongoing practice for me.
Right.
Yeah,
For everybody.
yeah, yeah. And
Actually, I think if you're not in that ongoing practice mode, one of two things is happening. Either you've just died or something is about to fall apart. One or
yes,
the other.
yes, yeah. I agree. So I'm sort of amazed that the realization of all this, the comeback, the one of the biggest concepts, and I do a deep dive on this, and it sounds so again, it's very superficial to say this. One of the most life-changing things that ever happened to me was I really understood there is no destination, and my journey is the point. That changed everything for me. Everybody's heard that. I've heard that since I was a kid and never understood it. Every day is the point. I'm wherever I end up is really irrelevant. Every day is that gift of today, that journey. What happens today? I'm fascinated with today. I'm fascinated with every encounter, and that it's an amazing way to live.
And I'll be perfectly blunt in saying I still am trying to learn that one. I
Yeah,
mean,
it's a hard one.
I've learned it to a significant degree. You mentioned success earlier. You mentioned that you're not the most successful person in the world. It's an interesting concept, success. And the reason I say that is it's going to be relative to whoever you are and wherever you're at.
Right.
Like you were talking about earlier, success earlier was having $1,000 in the bank.
Yeah.
Now
Yeah.
having $1,000 in the bank is nothing compared to that. I mean,
Yeah.
you don't even think about that anymore. But at that time, $1,000 in the bank was huge. So
Yeah,
which
it
one
was.
was successful?
It's all perspective based. And in my practice, I work with professional athletes a lot. I work with some literally multi-billionaire families. And one thing I can tell you is money does not equate to happiness. And everybody says, "Oh, sure, Joel." No, it's it
It
does
really does.
not. It really doesn't. I mean, on an actual practice, some of my most wealthy families tend to have the most miserable lives, and they can't find happiness with literally $2 or $3 billion, not millions, billions. And it's sort of helping them understand that, and they've been conditioned for a long time to they're the perfect example of wanting more. They want more. They want more. They want more, and never taking a moment to go, wow, look at this. And one of the things that why I love working with young people so much. I work with all these fabulously wealthy people, but I keep my private practice in Richmond, and that's where I work with a lot of young people. And uh, I love their energy. I love they haven't lost that I believe I can do anything. They haven't lost all that yet, and they're so they energize me. Even if they come in with problems, that I could quickly get them to a place, and they're just energizing. And so that's the understanding that childlike. Child doesn't have they don't have that complete 30-year history of what possibly could go wrong in your life built up. So they're just sitting there in amazement. That's why they're good at law of attraction, because I'll say this is how it works. They're like, well, that makes sense. Instead of why it won't work, they just go, yeah, okay, let's do that. And they're good at it.
Well, I think we've identified pretty well, kind of getting back on topic, why it is that we can be focused on trying to be happy and end up dissatisfied all the time.
Right.
Let's see if we can flip that switch. I mean, we've talked about different ways to actually flip the switch, but let's talk about it in terms of the concepts. How do we flip those concepts around? In other words, how do we get away from this idea of being dissatisfied in the face of trying to be happy, and instead find a way to appreciate and feel joyful regardless of what's happening that would otherwise make us feel dissatisfied.
Well, you use the word appreciate, in other words, gratitude. The idea that learn to, wherever you are right now, the inventory of what's right in your life helps. I have a dialogue, I have a top five. Here's what's great in my life. Here's what I like about my life. Here, and I can play that real quick in my head if my mood's slacking a little bit, and I can quickly get happy again. And again, it's not things that do that. It's not things. It's like that's once you take the focus off of any lack, and you realize, okay, I have all that taken care of. I have great health. I love the fact that I'm so healthy. I'm really strong. I have all this great stuff going for me. And I remind myself of that. I'm not saying that in an arrogant way or bragging way to anybody that's listening. It's just a mindset to really get to the mindset of gratitude is the gateway to happiness. So gratitude is the pathway to being able to be happy. Factual. That's the reprogramming process. Gratitude allows happiness.
Gratitude allows happiness. Yeah. That's
Yeah.
worth writing on the post-it note and posting to the mirror.
It's the fundamental. It's to me, it's fundamental. It's sort of, I like to break things that I can get into some complicated stuff. Walt, I get crazy in my
part of the fun.
All the we have all the quantum theory and all that. But at the end of the day, I have found that the single biggest thing, gratitude opens the door to happiness, and a lack of gratitude guarantees unhappiness. You're miserable when you're not grateful, and people it creates that victim mindset, and it's terrible. So gratitude is the gateway to happiness. So that's always the most fundamental thing. If there's a chance of figuring this out, it's always going to come from a gratitude mindset. The idea that hey, whatever I got going on, I want to be happy. So if I ask you, what is happiness to you? Do you have a definition of happiness?
A definition of happiness. I think I would break it down to something really simple. Happiness is when I'm feeling good.
I love that. Happiness is, I can define it. It's when the energy, I love to connect with people. I love the energy of people. I'm a big believer in energy connection. So when I get around somebody they're my people, I love the conversation. So happiness to me is about connection, connecting with like energy. I love to, one of the greatest things in my life, when I have somebody sitting in my office and they have that aha moment, they're like, oh my God, I got, and you literally see the brain start, those are moments of happiness for me. So I'm so grateful for those. So same as you're saying, when you're feeling good, when you're feeling in tune, happiness is really hard to define. But if you're using happiness as I need a partner, I need a spouse, I need money, and you're actually doing the opposite of what you need. Start with happiness. Like Abraham in, I don't know which one, maybe it's a secret. I can always get confused, but where I think it's a secret where, when you're not, if you want to attract a mate or somebody, make room for the mate in your house. Make,
Right.
Clean out closet space. Open the possibility. Don't sit there and lack. I have a lack of, I'm lonely, I'm this, I'm that, but yet you're not opening up anything. Just matching action with what you want to do. How would that feel if I have that? That's how you get there.
How would it feel? And then
Yeah.
put yourself in that place of feeling, to actually feel
Yes.
it. It's one thing to
Yeah.
do it intellectually. It's another thing to actually feel it.
Well, and I mentioned earlier the mind movie concept. And all these techniques, there's millions of techniques out there. Not everyone's going to resonate with anyone, but I'd love to sit down and envision things. I would like to see how that's going to, like, what would that be like if I did this? If I had a house on Lake Tahoe overlooking the lake, one of the most beautiful places in the world. What would I do in the morning? I'd get up, I'd do a meditation overlooking that beautiful lake, probably hit the gym, likely. It's just like, I would do all the stuff I love. But when I do that, I also, it's interesting because when most people try to envision what they look like, see, I envision going to work every day.
Mm.
I incorporate me going to wherever I'm at. I want to go to work. I want to go do that because I love what I do. And so happiness to me is going to work. Happiness is having the structure. Happiness is all of that stuff to me.
Yeah, that's pretty cool too.
Yeah.
And let's be honest, there are a lot of people who are jealous of that. They want to have that, and they don't have that in their lives. What they don't realize is that you're giving them the car keys how to get there
Yeah.
in their lives.
Yeah. And to be fair, changing a lifetime of thinking, and especially after bad breakups or bad all these bad things that can happen, it's really hard to because the subconscious brain is very protective, and once you've been burned, it doesn't want you to get burned again, and
That's
so
right.
it's going to say, hey, we don't want you to do that, but everything usually after there's nothing great in my life that ever happened until something ungodly happened and fell
Mm.
apart.
Yeah.
I shared the story when I was at the previous company, Williamsville Wellness, I used to work for when you and I first met, actually.
Right.
Addiction treatment center. I was the director at the facility. Uh, Loved my job, and everything was, loved my people. And I moved to Richmond for that job.
Yep.
And I was expecting retirement. My goal, my belief was when the owner retired, I would just buy it, take it over, and just continue to do it.
Sure.
The program was amazing. I had the best people to work with. That was my identity, director of that facility. Uh, the owner and I sometimes he could be a difficult personality. We're good friends now, and so we're fine.
Okay.
But on a random Saturday morning, him and I got into an argument, and I don't even remember the details of it too much. And I was in the right mood, and he was in the right mood and the wrong mood. And he says he fired me, and I say I quit. But something happened that morning, and all of a sudden I lost my really high-paid job as director of this facility, and I had nothing to do. I was like, oh my God, it was so that was shocking. And I quickly got my feet underneath. We've talked about that story a bunch of times, but I don't have the life I have today without that event taking place.
Mm.
And while that was great, I've leveled up. This is a much better. I make a lot more money, and I don't have to deal with anybody I don't want to deal with. I set my own schedule. I love what I do. I get to have multiple streams of revenue and income. It's just I leveled up after what felt like an incredible loss.
And there's another piece that you kind of skipped over, but I think it's really important, and it fits in directly to what we were talking about for most of this episode, which is how that momentum builds up over time. We were talking earlier about how the momentum builds up when we're focusing on what we're not happy about, what we're dissatisfied with, what we don't like that's going on. But it also works the other way around. I mean, that's
Right.
part of what you were describing in terms of how you changed your own beliefs about money around.
Right.
You literally reprogrammed your mind by rethinking over and over again all the different ways that you could actually believe that you could have all the money that you needed, all the money that you wanted, so you could do all the things you wanted to do, and so forth. That process of rewriting, that process of basically taking on a new identity, a new thought pattern, is the creation of a momentum. And that momentum had been going on with you for quite some time, up to the point when you lost that position, that ideal position. And the reason I mentioned this is the part that you kind of left out was you despite the fact that you were out of a job, you were booked up with work solid within a very short period of time after that. Why? Because you had all this momentum built up. So
Yeah.
a catastrophic event happened, but you wouldn't know it. It became a blip because the momentum took over.
Well, my dear friend and mentor, Dr. Sherman Master, who has passed away a few years after that, he worked with me at Williamsville Wellness, and he when I lost the job, when I quit the job or was fired, uh, he reached out, and actually, the ironic thing, if you want to hear the whole story, I had plenty of money saved up, so there's no urgent thing when I lost the job. It wasn't like my next paycheck was necessary to pay the rent. So I was going to just I knew I was going to take a week or two off anyway. And I had a couple of people reach out, and I said, do I want to run another addiction treatment center? Ugh. I didn't think so. but I was actually already booked on a flight to Florida to go to the bench. And
Mm.
for those that know the story, that's where I go to reflect and make decisions. So that was already in place. I mean, I had a flight booked, ready to go the following Friday. So I lost the job on Saturday. I was down at the bench on Friday. That's when Dr. Master called and said, "Look, I got an office space in my suite that you can have or rent from me." And I said, "What would I do?" And he goes, "You just be a life coach. I mean, you got all the experience." And he said, I said, "Well, how does that work?" And this is 2013.
Mm-hmm.
So there is no life coaching isn't like today. It's just,
Nope.
there was no life coaches in Richmond at the time. And so I said, "Okay, I don't know what that really means." And he said, "I'll help get you clients. Go introduce yourself to all the doctors and therapists here in town, and you'll do fine." And I had enough money that I could go a year or two, not worry about it. So I was good. And once I got the office space set up, within 2 to 3 weeks, I had 14 sessions booked. And then within a month, I had a full slate. Ended up making more money than I would have made if I stayed at the other place. And I haven't slowed down. Like I said, it was just a blip. And never really thought about it, but I was like, "Oh my gosh!" I woke up one day, but this worked out almost as if there was a script behind it. It worked out
Right.
perfectly because the story, that part that I didn't get into again, was I had been thinking about doing this, but I was never going to quit that job. I was not going to quit it without some event as a catalyst to quit it. And that happened. So I was already attracting this. It felt traumatic, but it was never traumatic. It turned out to be the best thing that ever happened to me.
You said it was almost as if there was a script behind it, and of course we both know there was a script.
There was.
You've been building the script for a
I
long
was
time.
I was writing the script for a long time, so it's almost became fulfilled prophecy. So when you write your script mentally, you have your mind movies or whatever your technique of envisioning or imagining or feeling like you have. You're writing that script, and when the universe and law of attraction starts to work on your behalf, it's working all the time. You're just sort of you're in awe of it. It's like, who are these people and why are they calling? Where did they get? I mean, how did this happen? And then the referrals. Like, I have never paid for a penny of advertising. I do have a website, just more. It's not an in-depth website, but I have a website, and I've never paid for advertising. It's word of mouth, and then my clients refer, and what an amazing life to have. And I could see where I attracted every bit of it. And getting back to the full time, I had to understand all this is already there. When you're looking for something and you don't realize you already have it, that's part of the problem. Everything you want is likely right there in front of you. You just aren't tuning into it.
Boy, that's really an important concept, because it is so easy to miss that.
Yeah.
We do, as humans, we routinely miss what's right in front of us.
Yes.
It sounds so strange to say. Even as I'm saying that, I say, how on earth could that possibly be? But we do.
Yeah. The idea that you're looking for something, you almost always attract it, but you're like, okay, well, it's so easy sometimes you don't realize, wait a minute, it's been here the entire time.
Right.
It's been here, right here.
Right here and readily available.
Yes.
And the only thing holding us back is us not choosing to see it. And I emphasize not choosing.
But also when you have the shield of, when the lens of lack is blocking your view, you're not able to see it. So when you don't think, I want happiness. So what does happiness mean? A lot of people, I asked that question. I asked you the question earlier. What's your goal? I want to be happy. Well, let's start with what that means. And you'll be shocked. What does that mean? Well, I want to be rich. I go, well, that's okay. That's not going to do it. Let's look at something else, but now a byproduct, and I'm the first to tell you, I have been literally homeless poor, and I've had a great abundance. A great abundance is a lot better. I'm not let's be clear. Let's be clear. I'm not in any way saying, oh yeah, it's great to be. No, it's not. It's terrible to be poor. To me, poverty is evil. Poverty is horrible. But also realizing my mind wasn't right to be able to develop an abundance because I was stuck in the lack of all that. And to go from homeless, losing everything, to where I'm at right is it isn't the it's hard to believe sometimes it happened to me, but the distance I had to travel mentally and emotionally is phenomenal. I mean, just my mindset toward life, and like I said, this the awakening that happiness is in your journey, happiness is in today, happiness is at this moment. That's what's exciting to me. And when you tune into that, then it just is self-fulfilling again. It's a script. It writes itself.
I think it's one of the more surprising things in life, that whole concept of the two-ended stick, which you referenced. The first time I ever heard about that was like you, it was with Abraham Hicks. I'd never heard of that concept before. And like most people, I actually believed in what most people think are the opposites. Good is the opposite of evil. Money is the opposite of poverty and all this kind of stuff. And it turns out that none of them are opposites.
No.
That's the part that I mean, really, I really did believe in that. And the first time I noticed that they weren't opposites, when I really looked closely, it was kind of a surprise. The way I did it, the way I came to terms with it was I said, well, okay, let's look at good and evil for a moment. All right. So evil is the opposite of good, right? So if I have a lack of evil, I'm going to have good. Except that's not the way it works, is it?
No.
Having a lack of evil doesn't actually produce good. How about the lack of good? Does the lack of good produce evil? Well, not really. It does. They're not actually opposites. It was a stunner. I couldn't believe it because I've been told all my life good and evil are opposites.
Well, one of the ones I love the most is an example because you can really understand this. The opposite concept between love and hate. Love and hate are the exact same emotion.
Yes.
I mean, it's an intense feeling to someone. You almost can't really hate somebody if you didn't love them at some point. I mean, almost. There's exceptions to that, but the idea that love and hate are an intense feeling, just your perspective of what it is. When your body is going through extreme anxiety, we had a whole show on this one time. It feels horrible. But if I were to hook you up to a machine that measures all the bodily functions and all the heartbeat and all that stuff going on, your breath, all that, extreme anxiety and extreme excitement are the same emotion.
Yeah.
It's your interpretation of the emotion. And ironically, extreme excitement is good for the body and extreme anxiety is bad for the body.
Yeah. How about
but they do the same thing for the body. That's fascinating.
Yeah. Yeah. It shows just how subtle the body systems really are to
Absolutely.
be able to differentiate that way,
Yeah. Because your perspective dictates everything. Your perspective of happiness or what you're viewing is like, every day we'll have these events happen. There'll be these things that happen, and how you respond to those is really important because that initial reaction sort of gains momentum. One of the things I've worked on over the years is I don't like surprises in my schedule. Like I get really frustrated, like when Justin was younger, and my son Justin, when he would have a project due, or oh, Dad, you need to be in the school at 10 o'clock on Thursday. I'm like, and it's Tuesday. I'm like, oh, I being a single dad and having my own practice and doing all the stuff I do, everything is structured up for me. I live by my Google Calendar, and any interruption of that creates chaos. So that would trigger me when I would do something like that. That would be, and over the years, you sort of learn to roll with it. If you got kids, hey, they're gonna do that. But that I had to adjust to that. I don't do well with surprises to my schedule.
The whole lack thing, if I can carry on with that theme for a moment, Abraham gives you the image of what they call a two-ended stick.
Right.
The one end of the stick has the thing on it. The other end of the stick has the lack of the thing on it. So that's their way of helping us to visualize what the true opposites are, which I find to be very helpful. One of the things that I tried doing the first time I heard of that concept, because that concept grabbed me. When I first heard that concept really grabbed me, I said, whoa, that makes real sense to me. So I kind of sat with it, as I so often do when I find something I really like. I kind of sat with it, and I found myself in my mind's eye, trying to see what the lack end of the stick looked like. So I would take a scenario. I would make a scenario up, which wasn't too difficult because I had certain things I was focused on. Particularly at that point, I was focused on money or the lack thereof. So I would look at my money stick, and I'd say to myself, okay, so what does the lack of money end look like? And it took me the longest time to finally be willing to admit that it doesn't look like anything at all. It's not. You look at the lack end, and there's nothing there.
By definition, lack means it's not there.
I mean, I was looking for an image. I was looking for some kind of some metaphor, something that would show me what the lack end looks like. The lack end doesn't look like anything at all. And that's when it kind of hit me, like, oh, how often am I focusing on nothing at all?
But that's the problem. You lack is nothing. Lack is an absence of. Lack is you're missing. So when you're looking at the black hole of lack, you're giving energy to something that doesn't exist. It lacks. It doesn't exist. That's the beauty of it all. It's like, so abundance is everything. Lack is nothing. And they're understanding that it's your perspective of things that dictates the side of it. That's the hardest thing for people to grasp, is you're in control of so much of this stuff that you don't realize. Reality, I grew up believing and that reality is dictated to you. You're born into your reality, and that's dictated to you. And when I'm a child, it was dictated. I had to sort of, okay, this is crazy, let's do this. But that was all I had. But then, when you're a grown up, you're assuming that this is your reality. And yeah, I mean, it's your reality if you choose it, but your mindset dictates your reality, and you can create anything. And that's the beauty of it all. But sometimes fearing that you're going to lack makes you stuck. How many people, and I know a lot, that's why I'm sort of in business, of people that are so unhappy, and their fear of stopping what they're doing is keeping them from allowing themselves to do what they want to do. So you hear that all the time. Well, I can't, and I do agree. When I left my job, when I was fired, I wasn't given the option of leaving. I wasn't going to leave on my own. So I, at the time, thought, oh my God, but it turns out that trauma, whatever you want to call it, of losing that high-paying job, wow, all of a sudden I'm grateful. And it really would, I was going to be stuck in that miserable environment with that ranting and raving and that craziness that was going on and all that stuff. Is like, oh, I don't have to do that anymore. I was given the gift of no choice. I was just fired.
And that is a gift. And that ties directly to what I was talking about a moment ago when I was talking about that lack end of the stick. Because that lack end is a nothing end. There's nothing there. I think you used the word black hole. I thought, wow, that really says it. Because what's a black hole? I mean, you don't have to know a whole lot about astrophysics to know what black hole is. This black thing in space that sucks in all the light. It sucks in everything that comes its way. Nothing. It never releases anything. It just kind of disappears into the black hole. We use that metaphor in our daily lives. It's like, everything just disappeared down a black hole.
Yep.
Well, when we're giving all of our attention to lack, what are we doing? We're giving all of our energy to the black hole, and the black hole gives none of it back.
Right.
Well, when I look at it that way, I say, well, shoot, no wonder it doesn't work.
Right.
No wonder focusing on getting frustrated with, the fact that I have this lack. No wonder that doesn't get me anywhere. All I'm doing is throwing my energy into the black hole.
Yeah, and when people lose relationships, when they fall apart, or they're broken up with, or whatever happens, and it becomes traumatic, the idea that the focus on the hurt of the loss of the relationship is it's similar to that. It's a lost relationship. It's gone. And, until you can accept it, then the gift of what's next comes up. But you can't get that gift until you understand that part had to fall apart first. And it's trusting that process is not the easiest thing to do.
No, it's not. It takes practice.
Yeah.
some of us, it takes a lot of practice.
Yeah.
For some of us, it takes a whole lot of practice.
Yes. Yes, it does. Yes, it does.
But it's all good, as the phrase goes. It is all good because
Yeah.
even with all the screw ups, even all the times that I mess it up, every time I still find myself focusing on lack, sending energy to lack, being frustrated with lack, noticing that the relationship is gone, or the money is gone, or the health is gone, or whatever it is. Despite all that, I still end up learning how to take my attention off of lack. It's only for short periods of time, maybe not even for more than 10 or 15 seconds, but I still end up learning how to do it.
But I really believe in you gain. It's like anything else. If you can get 10 or 15 seconds, the next time you get 20 or 30 seconds, or 40 or 50 seconds, and you gain momentum of that. And I just sort of operate on a daily basis. I get up every day. I do the stuff I love. I make sure I'm grateful for each part of the day, even when dealing with stuff that, this is annoying. But I make fun of pretty much I have huge humor in my life all the time. So, so I've been finding myself laughing at the silliness sometimes. Just, I had a guy in my office the other day, and obviously I can't film anything, but my life is so weird. So in the middle of our conversation, without warning, he jumps up out of his chair and knocks out 10 push-ups.
Whoa.
Yeah.
Okay.
No idea why. And so I'm sitting there just observing. I'm going, I have the coolest life. I have a life that I have no idea what's happening. The first session with this dude, and he goes, sometimes I get anxious and I just need to do that. I go, I'm good. I said, maybe next time you should give me a heads up, but that's still good. But I sat there for his 10 push-ups going, well, I want to see where this goes now. This turned out to be a great session. And I get what he was trying to do, but I'm laughing to myself, like, who else had a job that day somebody hopped down and get 10 push-ups? It randomly unexplained at first. It's like, wow.
It's funny you mentioned that too, because I think it was probably about 10 days ago. I had a guest on, a young man, 18-year-old named John Kimball, who had previously been he had a kind of a story similar to yours. He had been a gangbanger. He had gotten involved with drugs. He had gotten involved with crime, petty crimes, more severe crime. He'd gotten involved in a lot of stuff and got arrested, went to jail or prison, I don't remember which, and ended up flipping the switch, kind of similar to the way you did it, a little bit different storyline, but the same general idea. And at age 18, he has not only completely turned his life around, but he's become a life coach. And one of the things that he talks about is literally what you just talked about, that push-ups thing. I mean, he does burpees, but he'll just drop and do burpees if he needs to do something to shift his mindset. And
I love it.
It's almost like you were talking about the guy who'd been on my show. I know it was a different person.
Yeah.
But, I just couldn't avoid bringing that in because, my God, it's the same story.
It is. But it's just, things happen during the day. And, it used to be I tried to figure it all out. There's a lot of things in my life right now that I have no idea what's going on. And I find it fascinating. And nothing's bad, but there's some things I'm going, well, let's see how that works out. It used to be I'd have to define it or figure it out. But, I'm like, I have no idea where I'm at with this or what's going on, but let's just see what happens.
And hey, that pretty much is what life is all about right there.
Yeah. I got a great life. I got great people in my life, and there'll be all kinds of twists and turns, and I just sort of become fascinated with the show. It's a fascinating way to live life.
It reminds me of a lyric from an old song that most people won't know, but if you were an Emerson, Lake and Palmer fan, you would know it, which is "Welcome back, my friends, the show that never ends. We're so glad you could attend. Come inside, come inside."
Absolutely.
Described. Yeah.
I remember that song. Yes, and that's the when you view this as this is, I live this life like I chose it, and I chose everything that happened. And I'm going to experience and to unfold and to, and when I wrap it up, I believe I'm going to jump right back here and do it again. So yeah.
Yeah, I hear you. I hear you.
I just think I just feel that's the way it works, and so every day I live it like this is a gift. I don't know if today's the last day. I don't know if it's I got 50. If I have 30 more years, none of that matters because each day is independent. Each day is where I'm finding the happiness, and you just go at it. And I'm not perfect at it. I mean, every now and then you can have that moment, but I'm really good at getting myself out of it now.
Kind of tagging on as a last thought to what you just said. I've had a lot of people on the show who are channelers and psychics and mediums and have all these different abilities to connect to the other side and so forth. And to a person, every single one of them, they all have said the same thing. Everybody on the other side has their attention focused on this side because this is where it's all happening.
Yeah. Yeah. I can imagine because I would, one of my statements or that I love so much from Esther Hicks along the way. Somebody was asking her in a Q&A if the afterlife or source energy or whatever you want to call that afterward stuff, whatever that is, if you're all knowing, there's no problems, you just have everything, knowledge of everything, why would you want to come back into a life that you had suffered in or whatever? And her answer was, it's just really what sold me on her. She said, tell me what chocolate tastes like.
Yeah.
Yeah. And that answered it. Wow. And I would update that to what Nutella tastes like, but you get my point. Yeah.
One man's chocolate is another man's Nutella. That's fine.
Exactly. But the idea that we're here for the bumps and the bruises, that we're here for the emotions, the ups and downs, and that's why we came to it. This weekend, me and my son and some dear friends, we went to one of these escape rooms, and we had a blast, and it was fun to watch the kids, figure it all out and do that. Now we didn't win, which I'm a little disappointed in because I don't like to lose, but we will make a comeback. I vowed to come back. Okay. But the point is,
you should have gone to play whack-a-mole. You would have won that one.
I was about to say, if they would have had a damn whack-a-mole game in there, we would have finished it in record time, but none of that. But what I realized is we paid money to go figure out something, to go on this quest. And that I view that bigger. This is a quest we're on. You come in here and you have no idea. There's going to be side missions. There's going to be like some of the things in the escape room, they didn't matter. They're there, but some things did. There's all this, it's figuring it all out. And that's just the beauty that's the gift of this life.
Well, thank you, Joel, for once again helping me to figure all this out. By the way, Joel posted something last week where he talked about how there are some things that remain unsaid, believe it or not. And I like to point out to him that one of the reasons we do Mondays is so that he can have a place to say them. So thank you for saying them today. Yeah. We appreciate that.
Yes. Yeah, I said a lot. Oh, sorry.
No apology necessary. No, not at all. And thank you to our podcast listeners everywhere. We'll see you all next time here on LOA Today. Goodbye, everybody.